Hey guys, V. Rigoni, Max, high performance real estate entrepreneur. So what are we going to be talking about today? Retirement versus financial freedom. Because everybody hears your entire life that you got to get to the point where you can retire. That the goal of going to work is to eventually retire. Well, to me, I think I'm much more into the camp of financial freedom. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. But before we do that, let's smash the like button. Let's subscribe to the channel. Let's get ready to leave some comments. So this whole thing around retirement, well, where'd it come from? Well, it's really designed around when we went from the Industrial Revolution, where people were working 14, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, when kids were working 10, 12 years old or younger in factories. And then they came in with the concept of the 8-hour work week. That was really designed when it was brought into place by Roosevelt. This whole thing around retirement really came out of the unions. Okay, when the unions came into place, they said, hey, at some point, should be able to retire and live their life out. That's great. But what do we got today? Let's go just basically look at the definition of retirement. The basic definition of retirement is when you leave your job. Does that have anything to do with money? Well, we have then assigned this whole value that retirement should also then allow you to leave your job and not have to worry about paying your bills. But is that the case in America today? Absolutely not. The statistics are insane. The numbers of baby boomers that will be retiring and they're going to be living just off of Social Security after 2 or 3 years of spending down whatever little bit of money they've saved. That's what's going on. Do you want to be part of that? I was a financial planner for over 20 years. And with all the people that I would run into, all the people that had W-2 jobs, all the people that have been putting money into 401ks and IRAs, do you know how many? I probably have worked with up to 2,000 people. And if I probably saw no more than 20 or 30 of those people that actually had the kind of money, $4, $5, $6 million, that would give them the kind of retirement that you would be like dreaming about. The rest of the people are way under $1 million worth of savings, and the majority of people are under $500,000. That may all seem kind of great, but figure that out. If you get a 5% return on $500,000, that's $25,000 bucks. How are you going to live on that? All right, so you got your Social Security. How are you going to live on that? I'm talking about having a great retirement financially. So we've gotten this whole thing going where you're working 30 years. You're working 40 freaking years. And in the end, you're hoping to have enough money in that 401k plan so that when you can turn on the income and start doing a systematic withdrawal from those dollars, and they tell you not to take out more than 4% out of what you have saved. Otherwise, you'll start to eat the principal and it'll become a downward spiral and you'll eventually have less and less money, which means you'll have to take out a greater and greater percentage of your money, which means you will freaking run out of money before you die. Do you want to run out of money before you die? Not me. That's the system that you're living by today. That is the system you signed up for. Now, in the past, and when I say in the past, I'm talking about the recent past, up until the time they came into 401k plans, most people retired. And if they were working 30 or 40 years for a company, they had a pension. And so they took that pension plus their savings, which gave them liquidity, and then they had their Social Security, and they were able to live the kind of life that they were living prior to the time of leaving their job, the time of retirement. That's not the way it is anymore, folks. You are now responsible for what happens in your life financially in retirement. See, before, you just paid your bills, you went to work, and that pension built up. And then pension was there for you. It's not there anymore unless you're a federal worker, state worker, local worker. Most corporations have nixed their pensions, have frozen their pensions, or they don't have them like I said, they don't have them at all. That's what's going on today. All right, we want to get rid of that. So when we're dealing with this pension situation that doesn't exist anymore, so now we're dealing with this situation where there is no more pensions for most people unless you're of those select few. And then those people have to freaking hope that those local governments don't go bankrupt, those state governments don't go bankrupt, that where they become insolvent and they start to cut those pensions. Because if you're from a big city like Chicago, Philadelphia, you've got some serious issues around your pensions. If you've got a pension, I'm sure it's a great pension, but the question is, will it be there? Because there have been some real scares around some of these pensions. Look at what happened in Detroit. Now we're dealing with the situation where you're fully responsible for your retirement when it comes to putting enough money away in your 401k. Oh, and then once you put that money in the 401k, what does it have to do? Well, it has to grow. And it has to grow beyond inflation. And you're fully responsible for making those decisions. I can tell you from doing the retirement classes that I have done at the different universities around Chicago, like I've mentioned before, at Loyola, at DePaul, most people that come to those classes, and the thousands that don't have enough money to retire on. They have enough money to say, okay, I'm going to quit my job. But after 10 years, they're broke, and they're going to be broke. But that's what we've been told to do. That's what is considered, that if you get $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, oh, you're rich. Not when it comes to retirement, folks. So this whole concept that you're going to work for 30 or 40 years, if you do that, to me, that's ridiculous. But on top of it, most people who do that, they don't have enough money to financially retire in a way in which they're going to really enjoy their life. They're going to sit there and be scared most of their retirement that they're either going to immediately run out of money, or somewhere in the middle, they're going to run out of money. And are they in a position to earn any additional money at that point? No, because they've learned no other skills other than to go to work, punch the clock, and get the paycheck. And then once they're no longer there, then they're hoping. What's the other thing they're relying on in this retirement? They're relying on Social Security, right? The FICA. They've been taking it out of your paycheck since you're 16 years old and you got your first job and you said, what the hell is that? Welcome to the world. They're talking about between 2033 and 2035, Social Security is going to have to reduce their benefit by up to 23%. They're already sticking it on statements to seniors that are getting it in the mail. They're telling you that your benefit is going to be cut in the next 10 to 12 years. And if we have a serious recession, that number will come down because it always does. So you're sitting there, you've been paying it in, you say, oh, the government's going to take care of me. Have you ever seen anybody who's tried to live off Social Security, my friend? It's not a pretty picture. Back in the 70s, when we had this kind of inflation, they used to have programs, and they'd have, like, when you used to watch 60 Minutes, there was some episodes where they showed seniors eating cat food due to the inflationary problem that is today and was then. Because you don't get the increases in Social Security. Yeah, they come up a little bit each year, but so does the cost of Medicare when you're on Medicare. So it pretty much neutralizes most of the increase. That is the conventional form of retirement. The definition is you just stop going to work. The reality is you've been hoping that you've had enough money saved. You've been doing what your parents told you to do 30 years ago, what everybody told you to do. Get a job, start putting money in the 401k, start putting money into the IRA, and then hope that the stock market does well. And then the other last little bit of kick in the teeth is that you sure as hell better be happy and lucky that when you go to leave your job, when you go to retire and pull your money out of that part of the system, that the stock market is up and not down. Because we've seen 50% reductions in the stock market in the last 15 years. 2008, market was down 50%. COVID, market was down 50%. These things have an impact when people are getting ready to pull the plug and leave, cease their work. They're going to retire. Is that what you're building your entire life around? Is your 401k? Are you building your entire life around putting money into an IRA? Wouldn't you much rather think about this thing called financial freedom? Because financial freedom is a whole different game. Let me kind of just read the definition from Wikipedia for financial freedom and see if this is something you'd much rather become part of. Financial freedom. It is the status of having enough income or wealth sufficient to pay our living expenses for the rest of one's life without having to be employed or be dependent on others. Now, does it say anywhere in there, cease of work? It's inherent. You don't go to work when you're financially free. You can choose to do what you want to do. And if you choose to run your company, if you choose to do what to work at Home Depot, I don't care, but you don't have to. You are financially free. You're financially independent. That is a completely different status than waiting around for 40, 50 years in order to retire. I hope you understand what that difference is, because I did a long time ago. I always thought that my life would be about getting older and then managing my assets. What am I going to do to be able to do that? First of all, I've got to collect some assets, right? Now, I chose real estate in the beginning. And then I deviated and started a business, a financial practice with my son. Then we got back into real estate. And on top of real estate, then we started buying additional businesses. And then we brought in people to do that, to manage those businesses. Then we brought in a person that will manage the managers. That's how you get your financial freedom. Now, that's how I did it. What you want to do, the path you take, is totally up to you. That path could be just solely real estate. It could be solely just buying single family homes, getting a couple dozen of those, grinding it out. You're going to have to do a certain amount of the work in the beginning. We talk about active income. You have to go out, you have to do the work, because in the beginning, you won't be able to afford to pay people to do some of the work you can do yourself. You'll always have to pay people to do something. If you're not an electrician and you don't know how to wire a house and you've got to change some circuits or whatever, that's up to you. So that's a path you can take. Now, we can talk as we go forward on this program. We're going to talk more and more about what are the benefits of single-family homes. Just to touch on it a bit, they used to be a lot more beneficial owning single-family homes, buying them a few years back when the prices were lower and the interest rates were lower, so therefore the cash flow was greater, right? Because as interest rates go up and then they chased then the home prices that had already gone up, right? Now you have this squeeze on cash flow. But that's one way in which you did it. That's how I initially did it. They were paying my kids' private education. They were paying my mortgage. They were paying for vacations. This is what my properties were doing. Did I still have to have a job? Yes. I owned my own real estate company at the time, and I used to have 18 salespeople. And so I did that. I also built some homes. I did other things. But you start to build a portfolio. You can do that while you're working. You can do that to kind of move towards getting your financial freedom. Because no one's telling you right now to give up your W-2 job. It is one of your greatest assets right now in order to get a mortgage. So that's a path. A path is buying single-family homes. Another path is putting together a couple of people and start to buy multifamily. Is it good right now, a good time to be buying multifamily? Is it a good time to be buying single-family? Well, maybe not so much unless you're doing it with owner financing on some of these larger, what I would call more mid-sized apartment buildings that are between 24 to 60 units. A lot of those owners have had them for years. You'd be surprised how many mom and pops own 24-unit apartment buildings, and they're paid off. They'll hold the financing. That's a path you can take. Now, what's another path you can take? You can open up your own business. That can lead to your financial freedom. But make sure that whatever business you're going to be getting involved in, that inside that business is a path to you not having to work every single day in that business. Yes, in the beginning, like we talk about over and over, active income you're going to be doing, but is there a path in that business model in which you become the manager of a manager? Because if not, then you're just self-employed, and that just means that your job owns you, your customers own you, you don't have your time. If you're going to open up a business, if you're going to buy a business, make sure that you understand that within 10 years, that business will make you wealthy. Otherwise, you have bought a perpetual job with no benefit. And you may find that being a W-2 worker on some level was easier. Am I saying you should always stay as a W-2? All this is about not being a W-2 worker. But make sure that when you're making the decisions, when you're talking about, should I open up my own auto mechanic shop, make sure that there's a direction, there's a direct path to hiring more mechanics, to growing that business, to scale that business, so that in the beginning, even though you might be working 12 hours a day, that you get that down to where you're not working at all in that business, except for managing it, overseeing it. That makes sense? These are what lead you to financial freedom, because then you start to control your time. You start to make the money so you can control your time. And that's what we're talking about here. How do you get your financial freedom? Now, do you have to work on a job for 40 years? Do you have to own your company for 40 or 50 years in order to get your financial freedom? No, but you do that. Most of the time you have to do that when you're just trying to retire off of a 401k. When you've adopted, when you've taken in all this culture of just going to work for the man and working for 30, 40, 50 years, and then hoping that you have enough money in that 401k plan to be able to retire. Instead, you're taking control. You're saying to yourself, I'm going to give myself 10 years where I am totally financially free, or I'm going to give myself 5 years. You ought to be able to do it in 5, 3 to 5 in the right economy. In the economy that we're in right now, it's probably going to be closer to 5 than it is 3. In a booming economy like we just came off of, anybody can become financially free within 3 years. Just apply the principles, go and get the knowledge first, apply and do. What's my motto? What do I always say? Think big, start small, move fast. That's what you got to do. And that will help you lead to your financial freedom versus spending the next 30 to 40 years grinding it out. Now you might say to me, Yeah, but they're going to give me free money in my 401k. Well, congratulations. You think it's free, or haven't you worked for it? When you build your financial freedom, you're building it through equity. Yes, your income is going to grow. Your cash flow will improve over time if you're doing the right things. So your income will grow, your equity will grow, and then there'll come a moment when you hit your financial freedom, when you got your critical mass. If you're an endless spender and you keep growing your lifestyle equal to what is being generated by your companies, well, maybe not. But you have to start somewhere, and then you have to control that lifestyle on some level. Are you going to get to your financial freedom, or are you going to stick around in some company? It's not like the old days where you can spend 30, 40 years at one company and you'll get the gold watch and they'll all love you. No, you're going to be jumping from company to company. That stress of changing jobs. Are you going to be able to pay your bills? And let's face it, what happens to a lot of people when they get laid off from one job, they go to another? They start to do what? They start to rob their money in order to maintain their lifestyle. They start to pull that money out of their 401k. They start paying big penalties because they're not 59 and a half yet. So they got to pay the 10% penalty. Then they got to add that money to their income. Some people, when they pull money out of their 401k with a penalty, they're paying up to 40% in taxes on that money. It's the most expensive money you'll ever pull out pre-59 and a half. And that's what you got to be careful of. So what happens is people get their lifestyles going, and then they have a nice lifestyle, they get laid off, and then they rob their 401k. So what does that leave them for retirement? These are the issues that you got to think about. Do I want to be financially free? Do I want to hit that financial freedom before I'm 65 years old? Is that my goal? And if that's your goal, then you're listening to the right guy, because that's what I did. I've always controlled my time. We've talked about that in the past. Even when I was in real estate, I had a real estate company. I controlled my time. Even when I worked for another company, and I actually was a W-2 employee for about 8 years of my entire life, I still was able to have a position that I completely controlled my time. Now, I not only get to control my time, I have my financial freedom. I'm not hoping that the pension stays in force. I am not hoping that the city continues to pay and put money into the pension. I am not sitting here hoping that Social Security pays out. I'm going to take my Social Security and I'm just going to apply it to a mortgage and buy another property. I don't need to live on it. I don't need to live off of it. It's just additional money that will be coming in until they start to take it away from us, right? Because they said 2033, they're going to start taking it away. Think about it. Let's get out there and do something. Let's make it happen. If you got questions, leave them in the comments. Reach out. Not a problem. We'll get back to you. Remember, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon. Let's get out there. Let's make it happen. V. Rigoni, Max, high performance real estate entrepreneur.